Hello, I'm Tony, and today we are looking at The Beast Inside, a horror game free from Prime Gaming via the GOG store until the 18th of May 2023. This has an 18 plus rating, and there is a lot of blood and gore in this game. A lot. And plenty of swearing, so it definitely earns it. Let's do the usual graphics and sound rundown. I need to mention that the footage I'm showing is a very low res and it's got every cool, good looking graphical option switched off, because otherwise I was only getting about 8 frames per second. Decent gaming PCs will get better graphics, obviously. Here's a comparison. To be honest, I'm not sure I'm missing out on much here. There doesn't seem to be a huge difference in this particular area, though it could be very different elsewhere. Low res or not, the graphics do look good. Much of my time in the game so far has been spent walking around a dark environment with a lantern or a torch, and the lighting effects generate a very creepy, spooky atmosphere. The torch renders everything outside of its beam completely dark, and the lantern bobbing and swaying as you walk is a really nice feature. The sound effects contribute to the atmosphere as well. When you're in the house, it's quiet as you walk around, so any sound really stands out, especially if it wasn't made by you. If you're in the woods, there's a constant wind blowing, deadening any sound, helping to put you on edge, as you're not going to be able to hear if anything approaches you. There's dramatic music at appropriate times, which, I'll be honest, I didn't notice until I rewatched the footage. I think this is probably because it's very much in line with horror music tropes in films, so it felt very normal to me. The graphics and sound both work together to place you in this unsettling environment. For the first few hours, I was really immersed in the game. You play two people in different times, both investigating strange happenings at the same house. When I say strange happenings, I basically mean lots of people being killed and blood everywhere. So less strange, more horrific. You play in first person, as befits the immersion you want in a game like this. And you walk around the house discovering documents that help uncover what the hell is going on. There's also objects you can pick up and examine. Rotating them will eventually find a specific spot that fills out a secret story element that fills in gaps in the lore of the world, though it doesn't seem to be essential for the story to progress. I'm not going to spoil the story, obviously, because it's kind of the main focus of the game, really. I will say that I've been enjoying it and I'm intrigued to find out how everything fits together. I've actually got some theories about it, which shows that I'm actually invested in the story. The gameplay itself is pretty varied. One part is exploration, wandering around a bunch of different environments, discovering objects and solving traversal problems. Things like finding a pair of shears to cut through some vines that's blocking you. Another part are the logic puzzles, like a pretty tricky use of an enigma machine that took me a while to figure it out. On top of that, there are also first-person shooting parts, including like an overly long boss fight. Last of all, there's of course the story elements, the cutscenes and the documents scattered throughout the world that you read. I've encountered all of this within 6 hours of play, which is currently less than halfway through the 12 chapters. All of your interactions with the world are pretty streamlined, so anything you can pick up and throw around is highlighted with a grab in hand, at least in normal difficulty mode. Objects that have more relevance, like readable documents or usable ones, like the shears I mentioned before, have a different highlight, so navigating the world is pretty frictionless. Like, I never found myself struggling with the interface. You do have an inventory, but the majority of the items you pick up, like bolt cutters or shears, can only be used when they're required. So you're not going to need to work out what object to use where, it's all automatic. I pretty much only use the inventory function to refill my lantern, or go read some notes to help me solve a puzzle. This is a game that almost achieves what it sets out to do. The story itself is interesting. I do want to see it play out and unravel the mysteries that it poses, but the gameplay feels disjointed at times. I'm not opposed to playing first-person shooters, but the section when you're using a gun is a sudden and pretty radical change of pace from the solving puzzles that it irritated me, in no small part because the character turns so slowly and the gunplay is so bad. It just doesn't fit into the game at all and was frustrating. I was also looking forward to the horror aspects of this game, and in the first hour or so, some of the jump scares got me real good. But despite the gore and basic grossness of some of the imagery in the game, I wasn't feeling any sense of dread. Now that could be a me thing entirely, but it might also be because the constant jump scares eventually became predictable and lost their impact, and maybe desensitised me to the rest of the horror in the game. It could also be because you jump between the characters as the tension's building, and that really harmed the horrific aspect of the game as well. It's such a shame because there's a good game here. The puzzle elements were great. They're really challenging and rewarding when you work them out. And kind of worth getting the game for, I think. But that's provided that you also want to play some poorly implemented first-person shooting that I don't think you can avoid. Sections of the game are genuinely tense. I just wish they hadn't overused the jump scares. I do want to finish the game, so it's by no means a bad game. It's just I can't wholeheartedly recommend it, as I can see some of the problems I've mentioned being a deal breaker for some people. If you're up for a horror game, this gets it right a fair bit of the time. So while it's free, there's plenty here to make it worth trying it out. I just don't think I'd be that keen if I'd actually paid for it. Okay, that's all the horror I need for now. So I'm going to go back to the usual horror of real life. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.